Today, striking workers held a picket line, bringing production to a standstill at the Hexham plant. 10 men were told yesterday their jobs were axed. For Merv Sales, it was a rude shock after 12 years of service.
They could not give me an answer why I was dismissed or anything like that. There was just, there's no work for you. And I said, do I get a week's notice? And there was no work notice, no nothing. You're out the gate. That was what they said to me.
Most of the 47 workers on strike belong to the Federation of Industrial Manufacturing and Engineering Employees Union. Union official Bob Williams says a phone call to his office, followed by a facsimile, outlined the details of the men's dismissal. The reasons included the closure of the powder coating plant, transferal of some operations to Sydney, the closure of the dog watch shift and the disclosure of major theft on the site. Mr Williams says the company failed to properly consult the union and the employees under award guidelines and believes workers have missed out on redundancy payouts.
The blokes are on strike until such times that it goes to the Industrial Commission to seek some assistance.
Industrial Galvanisers General Manager Ray Howell says the company has met the retrenched workers' full entitlements and believes the strike could have disastrous results.
Maybe a lot more work is going to go back to Sydney rather than being done here in Newcastle, and it's certainly not good for us. It's certainly not good for our employees, but our hands are tied.
A total of 92 works combined to present animals on paper.
Well, we've been very fortunate in being able to show this exhibition. In fact, it's been a real coup for the gallery because we've had it from the Art Gallery of New South Wales. It's only touring to 3 venues and we're one of the 3. It covers a range of works from the 1890s to the present day. You know, artists like Hans Huyssen to Brett Whiteley, who recently died. And people like Margaret Preston and John Olsen and Lloyd Reith. So there are many, many famous artists in this collection. Well, from cave days, you know, men have been drawing animals on walls, so I don't know, maybe it's something inherent in all of us that we are affiliated or have an empathy with our animals. Most artists today get away from the sort of detailed photographic sort of work that people like to see and really work from their emotions. It's got a lot of variety, different mediums, different aspects of looking at animals, and there's something for everyone.
The works are on display at the Lake Macquarie Gallery until May 30.
The old power station at Wandji is on the drawing board to be knocked down, but a suggestion from a Lake Macquarie Council committee may just change that, an idea which no doubt would have pleased a famous artist who once worked nearby.
It has been mooted that this could be named the Dobell Arts Centre, and it would be a memorial to him. I would like to think that Sir William Dobell would be pleased if that happened.
Councillors looking at spending $10,000 on a feasibility study to see if the power station could be transformed into an art gallery. While some aldermen see it as a waste of money, Alderman Greg Piper believes it's worth a look.
We've certainly got to do quite a bit of investigation, not just on the building itself, but on the uses for it, the need for it from the region.
The owners of the station, Pacific Power, a state government facility, were unavailable for comment. It will cost more than $20 million to demolish the building. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Till someone sang out, and I came out and saw the flames at the back from Mr. Laird Welshman's nursery.
For the past few nights, the team has been training at Mitre 10 Stadium, the venue for this weekend's game. At times, the temperature has dropped to single figures, and coach Ken Kaiser hopes the Illawarra team get just as cold a reception from his players. Highfields Azuri has put its stamp on the side, contributing 7 players.
Highfields is such a well-organised club administrative-wise. They've got a good coach in Jim Foley. And it's a pleasure and a Saturday to go and watch Highfields play, so it makes my job easier when clubs are organised like that.
A sprinkling of players from around the rest of Newcastle forms the nucleus of a well-drilled team.
I think it'll get down to skilled players trying to play skill football.
Talent scouts from state league and national clubs will be watching on Saturday, with the possibility of later offering contracts.
I think primarily players should always look for that, to play first of all for themselves, play well, and then everything else falls into line.
The game will be played at Mitre 10 Stadium at 2:30 on Saturday. Matthew Johns has long been tipped as the heir apparent, but coach David Waite wants to bring him on sooner rather than later.
Matthew Johns is probably playing with a little bit more confidence and consistency, and we're looking forward to him settling down in first grade, see how he handles this third or fourth game at that level.
Adrian Brunker has been named in the squad, but at training tonight, his knee injury hampered him from running and he is still a doubtful starter. Also carrying an injury is Jason Martin. He was hit in the face with a surfboard over the weekend. Rodney Howe has kept his spot after filling in for injured forwards, along with Tony Butterfield. Paul Harrigan has the toughest deal though. He has to play on Sunday, then back up on Monday for the final State of Origin game.
He's got a job to do on Sunday, and hopefully he comes through unscathed in that and sets about his job on Monday night with the same fervour that he'll set about with it on Sundays.
Some good news for the Knights. Reserve grade sensation Andrew Johns today signed up until 1995. The club is now aggressively targeting its juniors to make sure they stay in Newcastle.
This is the site of Sydney's Parkley Market in Newcastle, now that he's been given the go-ahead to transform old factory buildings of the former National Textile site at Katara. Stage 1 of the $500,000 facelift will house retailers of bulky goods, furniture and discount white goods, as well as hardware and nursery supplies. But the project has its critics, including 4 aldermen who've lodged a rescission motion bidding for time.
I was not voting against the markets per se. I was voting that we should have a look at the type of operation to work out if this is exactly what we want, if we want to have something like this but different, or here but not as large. But we didn't get the opportunity.
Alderman Margaret Gumaz says the move could mean the last straw for the city's struggling CBD, with more customers lured away into the suburbs. Located near Garden City Shopping Centre, she says some retailers are feeling threatened and claims residents have a right to be concerned about the influx of thousands into their neighbourhood looking for parking space.
The whole lot together create an overall problem which the people of this area simply may not want to have right on their doorstep.
Today, a spokesperson from Sydney Parklea Market said they were very happy with Council's approval of Stage 1. He said work would commence on the project by the end of next month, doors expected to be open for trading by September. At the same time, the company plans to lodge a development application for Stage 2 of the project. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The auction rooms of Hunter Valley Auctions were overflowing with people. They had expected around 300 bidders. More than 800 turned up. More than 1,000 bits and pieces were sold, stored for the last 12 months in police stations around the region, either stolen or recovered goods. This light may have been used to help grow indoor plants. Items range from sporting goods to power tools. $25,000 was raised, the money going to the Police Commissioner's office. The exact use of the funds is yet to be determined. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The day started indoors with high-energy aerobics, Sam Newman flying the flag for Illawarra. However, Tracy Willis from Newcastle was more technical in her approach and came away with the win. Newcastle's step aerobic team of Lisa Johansson and Narelle Spruill completed the clean sweep. Across town, and the Illawarra girls got a flogging on the netball court. The Newcastle shooters hardly missed a single goal, and it showed in the scoreline. Over at Birmingham Gardens, Newcastle applied plenty of pressure and had the opportunities, but just couldn't finish it off. The Illawarra boys tried all the fancy footwork, and it did eventually pay dividends. At number 2 Sports Ground, Illawarra were desperate to impress because it's their only representative league game of the year. The scores were locked 18-all at half-time, but 2 quick tries in 2 minutes from Newcastle halfback Tony Price early in the second half put the locals clear ahead. Speaking of heads, Newcastle captain Trevor Crowe will have a sore noggin tonight after a head clash with Illawarra's Gary Walsh. Illawarra bounced back after a penalty try was awarded for holding the ball player back. But Newcastle simply played all over the red and whites, and the boys from down south did manage to make the score a little more respectable with a try in the last minute of the game. The rugby game, on the other hand, was a very stop-go affair, neither side really getting the opportunity to stretch out. Illawarra scored first through the boot of Trevor Travaskis. That spurred the Newcastle boys into action, and they stepped into second gear and eventually got the winning points on the board.
20 academic staff travelled from the university in Sydney to attend the graduation, which had a distinct Aboriginal flavour. It began with a blessing ceremony by Father Bernard Ryan and an opening address by the principal of the Australian Catholic University, Professor Murdoch Dinnan. Then the moment everyone was waiting for. The 15 Aboriginal graduates presented with their diplomas. Federal MP Gary Nell urged others to follow.
Throw away the pursuit of mediocrity, because all too often this is what our education system and our society is looking at. And what we need to do is every one of us, no matter who we are, to pursue excellence, because that's the way we as individuals and as a nation are going to grow.
The Central Coast John Fitzmaurice won the men's division of the 15-kilometre course. The 40-year-old completed the distance in a time of 56 minutes 46 seconds. Whoopi's Phil Benoit was 12 seconds behind and followed by Peter Heffernan, who was leading the event before taking a wrong turn at Red Rock. Lynn Fulton of Sapphire Beach was the first woman home in a time of 64 minutes and 48 seconds. Young Ben Marwini set a new record in the 5-kilometre event. The 17-year-old won the race in a lightning-fast time of 16 minutes and 46 seconds. 13-year-old Nicole Moffat won the female section of the 5-kilometre race in 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Paul Hoffman and Vivian Whitlock were the victors of the 2-kilometre race.
Around Nelson Bay, Jeff Elliot is regarded as a true living legend. 2 days ago he celebrated his 90th birthday, and today the golf club initiated a trophy in his honour. And the honour is well founded. 30 years ago Jeff joined the club and set about transforming the greens and fairways into something playable.
They used to paint their balls yellow so they could find them in the sand.
For 11 years he reigned as president, stepping down at the age of 76, having completed his vision. But he hasn't left the club completely. Nearly every weekday you can find him playing on his own handiwork. And he cuts a fair pace, pushing his buggy around the course.
I don't like carts. I've never played well in a cart yet. I don't know why. You can't concentrate in the same way.
Within seconds of teeing off, Jeff performs a ritual at the start of every hole, rolling a cigarette. In today's Stableford, he finished 5 over his handicap, but left plenty of others behind.
He's 90 years young, and as you can see the way I hit off, I'm there for the comic relief, and he's there for the golf, and he still plays good golf.
And the way he's hitting the ball, he'll be playing good golf for years to come. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
The Mayday call went out just before 10 o'clock this morning. Van Lee Zuyen had been prawning with his vessel Farewell and was returning home with his sizable catch. After noticing the trawler was taking water at a rapid rate, failed pumping attempts forced him to steer closer to a nearby vessel to call for help. But that's when he lost control of the steering and crashed into the side of the Matsura Maru, a Japanese bulk carrier anchored offshore.
He made it about probably 20 metres away from the ship, and it went down and sunk. And he made it to one of his the old fish box that was in the water, and a small runabout came in and picked him up.
The fisherman was then taken aboard another trawler, the Isabel. Police launched Stackpool was called in. The Matsura Maru launched its rescue boat. The exact area where the 18-metre Farewell went down has been pinpointed. Salvage attempts are expected within the next few days. Police say the Newcastle-based Vietnamese fisherman escaped the ordeal with only a bump on the head, but a hefty replacement bill.
It's a $50,000 vessel and uninsured, and he claims he had 4 or 5 boxes of prawns on board too, and he's lost the lot.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. The John Hunter Hospital has extended its smoke-free policy. Up until now, smoking has been banned inside buildings and vehicles. Today, that was extended to all entrances and exits.
We now know that passive smoking is also a cause of ill health and disease in people, and we're trying to protect the people who are coming to John Hunter.
More than 1,500 admissions each year to the John Hunter are attributed to smoking diseases, representing a cost of around $5 million. The experts say at least 50% of smokers want to give up the habit. According to the New South Wales Cancer Council, smoking is responsible for around 18,000 deaths in Australia each year. In the Hunter, more than 90,000 smokers willingly put their health at risk. The hospital's move on passive smoking is one time to help put the spotlight on World No Tobacco Day.
There are probably over 50 countries in the world that participate, so I think it's an important world focus for a smoke-free society. That's the aim, and I think we're working towards it.
Back in 1985, truanting or wagging was a big problem in New South Wales schools, with an estimated 22,000 absences per day. 8 years later, that figure has dropped to 7,000, partly due to the introduction of the Homeschool Liaison program. In the Hunter, police from the Newcastle district and education officers discussed the success of today's special truancy operation. Beaches, fun parlours and the mall were targeted, those truanting coming up with the best of excuses.
Several of them said they had to be referred to other agencies, they were going to doctors, etc., or other government agencies, and one or two just said, we've just caught out.
Those students will now come under the watchful eye of specially trained homeschool liaison officers.
Our role's very much the follow-up work now, which we've begun by phoning schools and phoning parents, and we'll be following up any of the students that have got some problems that we might need to attend to.
According to police, the campaign has been so successful, plans are underway to expand the operation.
We're hoping to expand maybe in the next few months, that we expand it out into the suburbs as well, out to around Charlestown, Garden City areas, to involve the shopping centres as well.
So truants beware.
That's correct.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The documents reveal a discrepancy between the number of people the state government claims are waiting for elective surgery and the actual health department figures. The opposition says statewide there are an extra 10,000 people waiting, and in the Hunter an extra 800. Shadow Health Minister Dr Andrew Refshaugi claims the state government extensively doctored the 1992 figures to cover up the longest waiting lists ever recorded in New South Wales. A claim strongly denied by the Health Department. A spokesman says there was no attempted cover-up. He says when the figures were released, it was made clear that some groups of people were not included, namely those who were waiting less than 7 days for surgery and people who had their admissions deferred either by their own choice or their doctors. The new figures show the Hunter has the third longest waiting list for elective surgery in New South Wales, behind Sydney's eastern suburbs and the western area of Sydney. Police again gathered today to fight the proposed transfer of 50 senior constables to Sydney.
There is a unified front in Newcastle. We've just got to get the message across to everybody else that the police in Newcastle aren't going to put up with this proposed scheme.
Police Association spokesman Sergeant Paul Baker says they haven't been told why the reshuffle has been instigated or who'll be moving. However, the association is concerned about how the removal of 50 senior constables will affect policing in the Newcastle area.
It also affects our relationship with the community. The department brought on community-based policing, told us to get out there, get to know the community, get to work with them, liaise with them and build up a rapport. And when we've done that, they take 50 of our most senior police away.
Police have formed a committee to continue the fight. What their options are unclear, with police management insisting the transfers will go ahead. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
In town to promote the project were two unlikely bedfellows, ACTU Secretary Bill Kelty and the chairman of the Linfox Transport Group, Lindsay Fox.
Well, a great degree is to convert dole payments into wage subsidies so that when we get out of this Great Depression that we're in today, there is at least something left in the community by which people have gained some sort of job satisfaction and at the same time had pride and dignity in picking up a paycheck rather than a dole payment.
The CES has more than 70 different employment programs, with the most popular being the Job Start scheme, with subsidies of up to $7,000 per employee.
A lot of our programs, in fact, lead to long-term permanent jobs. The Australian Traineeship Scheme, which was one mentioned here today, 90% of kids stay with a permanent employer after the scheme. In Job Start, the percentage is something like 60 people stay on in permanent employment after the subsidy period's finished.
100 public sector representatives and private business people, as well as civic leaders, were on hand to hear the scheme outlined. Chairing the meeting, Lord Mayor McNaughton called for a pledge of more jobs, and the Hunter Area Health Service and some councils obliged. However, an emotional Cessnock Mayor Marie Callaghan placed her political future on the line, saying, try as she might, job creation funds always end up being spent in marginal political areas.
I've been trying terribly hard this year to create jobs for people. We looked at a scheme at Pillor Main, reopening a tourist mine, creating 400, 500, 600 jobs. Everyone was terribly interested before the election. After the election, they're duck shoving. They don't want to know us.
Customs has the job of monitoring more than 37,000 kilometres of coastline around Australia, fighting to keep out illegal drugs, firearms, illegal immigrants and foodstuffs.
It is tough. It's a difficult job. We're spread pretty thin on the ground, but we do our best.
While some people are getting caught trafficking drugs such as heroin, Customs admits others are getting through. In a week-long project, Customs officers are travelling the coast from Brisbane waters north to Tweed Heads, calling on the public for help.
With the community awareness program we've got going on the north coast at the moment with this operation, we hope to get some input from the public to assist us in doing our job.
Only 12 officers work the Newcastle region, with the job of following hundreds of ship movements each year. Customs officers say they're being hampered by government restrictions. For more than a year, they've been fighting for 24-hour patrols of the Newcastle coastline. As the system stands now, for 7 hours during the night, this harbour is open to anyone who wants to bring in illegal goods. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The venue, Newcastle High School Auditorium. 200 people are present, the gathering coinciding with many others around the world, timed for 9 o'clock last night, Australian Eastern Time. First, toning up, to evaporate embarrassment and get people coordinated. Well, almost. Not everyone was convinced at this stage. Chanting is important, it's explained. Gregorian monks do it, so do Tibetans, and the American Indians were known to chant for days on end. Last year, the emphasis was on the environment. This time, the focus was Indigenous people. Aborigines were represented, as were North American Indians, along with Maoris and many other races and cultures. The Newcastle end of the event was organised by the local Antakarana group, which describes itself as a bridge between lower and higher consciousness. For some, that needs no explanation, but for the rest of us, we can only sit and wonder. By the climax, they say the energy was terrific. For me, well, maybe next year.